Okay, good evening, afternoon, whatever time it is that you're listening to this episode, everyone. This is another episode of the Libertarian Party of Maine Roundtable podcast, and we are joined again by the Three Stooges here. So we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. But before we do, just want to quickly go over what we're going to be talking about today. The main reason why we are adding another episode so quickly to our last one is because of we ended up having a long portion of last episode be about the conflict in Iran, not war, conflict in Iran.
War, right.
So we wanted to go ahead and expand upon that because there's a bunch of stuff that there's still to talk about. And as it is still going on, that conflict is still ensuing. It just seems like probably the most pressing thing that people are talking about. And I think it's even overshadowing a lot of domestic policy. So before we get into that, again, just to give introductions, my name is Jason Mataafa. I am the treasurer for the Libertarian Party of Maine, and I am also the rep for Waldo County. Dane, you want to introduce yourself?
And I am Dane Courtois, and I am the chair of the Libertarian Party of Maine and also the chair of York County.
And Matt St. Pierre, I produce the podcast.
I love how when Matt introduces himself, like we have these like long titles. He's just like, "Hey, I'm Matt."
Yeah,
it's pretty good. All right, so let's dive right into this.
All the same, though.
Yeah, we'll dive right in. I think it's actually apropos to start with two videos that are both from Dave Smith, who, of course, me and Dane are both quite big fans of as fellow, former Peacock and current Peacock. So if we can start with Dave Smith's podcast episode video on Tulsi Gabbard's congressional testimony, I think that will lay a lot of groundwork.
All right, let's go to the Tulsi Gabbard one because this really is the juiciest of all.
Under the law, you are responsible for providing national intelligence to the president, correct?
Yes.
And to the heads of executive branch departments and agencies, yes?
Yes.
And to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior military commanders?
Across the IC, yes.
And to the Senate and the House and relevant committees, correct?
Yes.
And the law states that the national intelligence you provide to Congress, quote, should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations, correct?
Yes.
And you noted in your opening statement you're here fulfilling a statutory responsibility and that your testimony, quote, represents the IC's assessment of threats,
That's right.
Correct? That opening statement, as submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, stated that as a result of last summer's airstrikes, quote, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And is that in fact the assessment of the intelligence community?
Yes.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes.
Yes.
And the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False. This is the worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to the based on a volume.
No, it is precisely.
Yes, yes, it is. Yes, it absolutely is. Right?
Well, I think we could probably end the clip there. I'm pretty sure Dave is about to say something similar to what we're about to say.
Right.
And I think it's actually kind of hilarious because you and Dave both made the same facial expression and head nod at the same exact
Really?
time. So it was pretty good. It's pretty good. So this is the challenge, and this is where I am disappointed with Tulsi, because if you rewind back to, let's say, 9/11, post 9/11, after towers have been hit, and we start talking about the WMD issues and weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, I'm not sure how many people remember, but if you were to go searching on YouTube for clips, what you're going to see is a hearing just like the one we just watched, with the IC then saying, yes, we believe there is a potential for a nuclear threat coming from Iraq. And that is the reason, that was probably the impetus that Bush used to go ahead and say,
Right.
okay, we need to go in there.
Yep.
So like it's one of those things where like there's probably, I mean, I don't know if either one of you digged into this. I looked at it briefly. There's technically probably some language that says that technically it's just a recommendation they're making. But at the same time, it's like, all right, well, if our entire intelligence community, including the CIA and NSA, and this is also military intelligence, this is information coming from foreign assets, including operators, if the overall consensus is that the nuclear sites were destroyed last year, that there is no current immediate nuclear threat, and what we're saying is, well, there could be a future nuclear threat, then what we're basically saying is that we are preemptively striking now instead of waiting until the threat actually materializes, which is fine. You can make that a policy, but then that's just not what you were telling the public. Like, it was making it sound like tomorrow there's going to be a drop, like a bomb dropping in like LA Harbor, and because of that we need to go in. I don't know.
So, I mean, let's be honest. The DNI's sole responsibility is to provide a cogent and succinct intelligence briefing to the president on a daily basis.
Oh, real quick, before you keep going, I just want to let just for clarification for anybody who's listening, just as a point of order, I suppose, the DNI is a result of 9/11. Before 9/11, there was no DNI; it didn't exist. So it was an office, to your point, that was created for the purpose of what she is doing right there, of saying,
of collating and condensing all of the IC, because I don't even know how many 3-letter agencies we have that are contained in the IC, but there's a lot. There's more than a dozen, right? And her entire responsibility is to collate and parse through all that, her and her staff, and provide the president with the most up-to-date data and intelligence on whatever the risks of the day are. And if you're telling us that, you know, what was it? when was the bombing of the new? It was like June,
summer.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was last
summer,
June or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling us that mission accomplished, right? Like Bush did on the aircraft carrier, right? That long ago, then what was the impetus, you know, to get involved to this degree now? If we had already quelled the threat, then.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I will try to be charitable. And actually, I think Matt brought this out on our last episode, and I think it's a valid point. I think that there is a valid concern to say, hey, there's this country in the Middle East that I don't think we have the time, because we'll be here for 5 hours talking about the back and forth between American foreign politics and Middle East and how blowback and all that stuff happens.
Yeah.
So let's just say there's a country in the Middle East that does not like America. I think we could agree on that. They're pursuing nuclear weapons of some sort. That's dangerous to America. This is something that we need to do something about. The question becomes, okay, how close are they and when? And I think the big key point is that the messaging that was being shared was that we had to go now because it was imminent. To your point, the DNI is saying the complete opposite. And the part that I think got you and Dave shaking your head is that by her saying, well, we don't make determinations of imminent threat, only the president does. You are ceding a lot of power in terms of what an imminent threat is to one office, and this is the issue. Post 9/11, we've been, well, actually, since World War II, we've basically circumvented Congress. We don't declare wars anymore. For anyone who's not aware, the last war that we actually declared was like the Vietnam War. because the Korean War was technically Korean wasn't a war, I believe. I think it was a conflict.
No, neither was Vietnam.
Vietnam, I thought it was, wasn't it?
Nope.
Matt,
Nope.
help me refresh. Was it?
I'm pretty sure the last declared war was World War II.
Okay, let's go with that.
I'll look.
I like that sound.
I'll look
better.
it up.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll look it up. I'm not looking it up. Let's say it is. Let's say World War II. That was the last time Congress actually filled its role and declared a war. So we're kind of on 100 years of that being the case. If you do that at the same time, saying that a president gets to dictate what an imminent threat is, what you're basically doing, whether people want to admit it or not, is saying that the president, the one person, has the right to send American troops in the U.S. military into a conflict. If that is what we're doing, then we can no longer call ourselves a republic or a democracy.
No,
we
but
just can't do it anymore.
This is outlined, I believe, in Article 2, right? The president has the right to because he's the commander or they are the commander in chief.
Of course,
they have the right to mobilize the military on. I'm going off of memory here, but it's like imminent threat.
Correct.
Right.
60 days.
Which is why they're using this term, right, as an imminent threat. And I think there's one other. There's like two stipulations where they can mobilize
60 days. You get 60 days to do it, and has to be an imminent threat, and you have to actually give basically a notice to Congress that you're about to mobilize. You don't have to ask for their permission, but you have to contact basically whoever the head of the House is at the time, and then the security committees in Congress, and let them know what's happening. Give them basically a briefing going, hey, I'm doing this whether you guys want it or not. This is the reason why I'm doing it. I'm giving you a heads up. Thank you very much. Have a good day. And I got 60 days of leeway to get it done. Is basically what it does. And to your point, that's why the imminent threat word is being used. And that's also why Tulsi refused to answer it. Because if she says, no, it's not an imminent threat, well, then this, I mean.
Did Trump even notify Congress before this attack? February 28th? He did? Okay.
Yeah, he did. That was the invalid critique that was coming like, oh, he didn't even tell Congress. He did. Well, he just didn't make a big thing of it. At the same time, I don't think Johnson wants to make a big thing of it either because he sucks at his job too. So.
To be completely honest, to make anything of it is strategically insane.
Agreed.
Right.
To stay quiet and be like, yep, we knew about it.
Right.
Which makes sense. Which makes perfect sense.
Right.
So that's the thing. And I think, and again, this is where the frustration with Tulsi comes in, and also where a little bit of the Joe Kent conversation from last week also comes in, is that Tulsi's right-hand person was Joe Kent. Joe Kent's basically, I think when we talked about Joe Kent, it was the day before this hearing or the day of, so we didn't really get to talk about it.
Yeah, it was the day of.
It was the day of. So Tulsi in that presentation basically just reiterated the same points that Joe Kent said. There's no imminent threat. It's not that we have to go now. We took out the bombs last year. We should be really proud of that. If you remember last year, Joe Kent was actually very much on board on the 12-day war on the strikes because he said, okay, we're going to do this thing. Let's do it. Let's take the nukes out. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Threat handled, measure success. Let's go, America. And he is holding to the point that, yeah, we did that. And Tulsi is basically reiterating that. And I think it's very, very, very interesting that Tulsi's still in her position. She has not been fired. She has not stepped down as of yet, all of those rumors.
Hold on, pause. Because why do you think that is? Because like later on in the episode, Dave and Robbie talk about how Tulsi used to be, my brothers and sisters in arms, and she saw some fucking shit, right? She saw some shit as a medical officer, and like
not combat. Let's rephrase. She was not in combat, but she did see people coming and getting injured. Yes,
right. She saw the fallout of these actions, right?
Sure. So to an extent, sure.
So I don't know. I used to hold Tulsi in very high regard because she seemed like someone who went against the grain and stood up for principle. But the principles that she like campaigned on for going for POTUS in was it 16?
It would have been 16. Oh no, 20.
Or 20. It was 20.
2020.
She's abandoned all of those. And that really breaks my heart because, it's so rare when we libertarians see someone, a diamond in the rough, if you will, of a politician. It's like, hey, they're actually making some sense. and yeah, they have the D or the R, but like they're moving the needle to like where it should be living, right? And Tulsi was one of those. And to me now, she's completely abandoned and is just a mouthpiece for this administration, in my opinion, at this point.
This is where I would disagree with you and Dave on this point. And I think this is the main reason why, is that if she would have come out and said something about Joe Kent, it would have completely discredited him because she was his boss. She didn't say a word. And during this whole thing with Trump saying all the stuff and the attacks and everything else, she still hasn't said a word. So if she wanted to really double down and make Trump look even better, I think she could easily do that.
Dude,
I'm not saying that she's blameless in this.
No, I agree. I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, the fact that she didn't come to his defense while he was advocating for shit that she campaigned on, like,
I agree.
That to me is I don't know. Like,
this is where politics gets ugly, and this is where libertarians. I'm going to say this out loud. If libertarians don't like it, they can all eat me. Libertarians are not suited to govern because of this particular reason. It's because politics is a dirt fight in the mud with evil people. And because we are so high on our morals, not saying that they're bad, but because we would sacrifice ourselves to politics and never get anything done. If Tulsi says something and she's not there anymore, who takes her place? And who gets to pick it? Because I guarantee the person who picks that next person is Rubio.
Yeah,
because he's been put in charge of so many things right now. If you're telling me I have to pick between a silenced Tulsi and a Rubio acolyte, I'll take a quiet Tulsi every day of the week.
Fair. With that, why don't we go to Trump's reaction to the Joe Kent?
Your director of national counterterrorism, Joe Kent, he just resigned today. He said he can't support your conflict with Iran. What's your reaction to that? And did you?
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security.
You picked him.
I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something about it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that presidents should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if, I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there, loaded with cash, hundreds of millions of dollars? You would have been very happy. This was a wonderful. They sent hundreds of millions. People forget that. Does anybody remember?
All right, that's enough. Right? That's enough of this. That's enough of this.
In his defense, I will say this because this is true. Kent was not a Trump pick. He was a Tulsi and J.D. Vance pick.
Okay.
So I think
that's more of a positive for him.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
One other thing that I think, just for context, because I think it's important to the conversation. Joe Kent blames Israel for the death of his wife.
Hmm?
He straight up says this. And so as you're doing analysis on two countries, one of which you blame for the death of your wife, you're probably never going to show that one country in a positive light. So I think that's just, I always try to bring in the context, and I think that's important context to the discussion.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah. I think the one thing and I think this is the thing though, is that even with that in mind, this is, I think, the first time he's been out of lockstep with the Iran conversation. Like he didn't bring this up last year during the strike on the nuclear facilities, because I think he thought it was a good strike. I think that's just the tough part, is like, you're right, not 100%. I think he believes, and I don't think he's the only person, especially now, that believes that a lot of the prolonged conflict that was the global war on terror, not a war, was due to political choices being made and by the direction being given by a foreign nation. I think he generally believes that. I don't think he's the only person. I think a lot of people believe it. Whether you want to say it's true or not, or if it's valid or not, that's where the whole wormhole opens up, and you get anti-Semitism claims being made, and you get the divide on the right between the Tucker, Megyn Kelly types who, like, Tucker has been to Israel now how many times in the last 2 or 3 years? Like, he's not, like, he may be anti-Netanyahu and the Likud party, but he's definitely not anti-Israel. Megyn Kelly, up until about 4 months ago, was like basically being told, hey, denounce Tucker or else. So I think a lot of people have been pro-Israel as the nation state, but this current political regime in the Likud party and the way that they're executing their conflicts have gotten to a place where people no longer feel comfortable. Because, like, Israel's been at war since its inception, and historically no one says anything about it. I think what's happened is that this whole thing with Gaza, this is the first time where that type of conflict, at least in terms of the Middle East with Israel, has been basically it's been on photos every day. And some of them are fake, 100%, but a lot of them were actual real. And it was the first time Americans got to see this is what was happening over there. Like, this is how this is being executed. And it put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths who historically were big supporters. And I think this is the issue. Actually, I'm gonna cheat a little bit because I actually was reading about this right before. And I just want to make sure that I actually cite the correct sources, so that way I can't be told that I was making shit up. So Lancet. So if anyone doesn't know, Lancet, they are a company that does a lot of statistical analysis. They do basically peer review studies, so on and so forth. And yes, you can go ahead and say that there's issues with replication and peer review, so on and so forth, but that's the system we have. So take it or leave it. But the Lancet put out a peer review analysis on the conflict in Gaza and was looking at the rates of non-combatant deaths versus combatant deaths, and came to the conclusion that it is, historically, even during the war in Afghanistan, there was civilian death. That's part of war. I know people like to hear it. I know libertarians hate to hear it. Civilian deaths is a part of warfare. This is why you need to avoid warfare if possible, because it's never just bad guy versus good guy and no one else gets harmed. That's just not how warfare works. That being said, there were definitely civilian deaths during the war in Afghanistan, and primarily the war in Afghanistan, but even a little bit in Iraq. When you talk to people who were in the command structure during that time, it's one of those things where they're like, yep, it's sad, it's horrible, we need to try to mitigate it. I don't know how many times, I don't know about you, Matt, where our rules of engagement got changed after an incident happened because they didn't want any kind of blowback. Where hey, I think it was I think there was a drone that went down for a mechanical issue. It wasn't shot down, but a British drone that went down mechanically. Just so happened to crash into some people's house, took out a wife and 2 kids. And for the next 5 weeks, our rules of engagement just got flipped upside down. And we're it wasn't even if we targeted these people. It was a horrible accident and it sucks. And pray for those people. But we didn't do anything. Us as the people on the ground, we did nothing. But everyone was afraid of it and didn't want to deal with it. I get it. During that time, there was a civilian to combatant death rate of 2.5 to 1, and that was always criticized as being way too high. That's too many civilians dying. You can't have 2 civilians dying for every 1 combatant. There's a lot of that number that's probably skewed because there were people that were being used as human shields. I know people don't like hearing it, but that's actually a thing that takes place in the Middle East. Right. Sometimes you would I personally have seen a combatant be shot. His wife comes out from inside the house, tries to pick up the AK and shooting at the platoon. And then you have someone on Overwatch who takes a shot. It's a horrible thing. Again, war is disgusting and evil, but these things happen and those things get factored into the stat. That being said, right now the rate in Gaza is 11 to 1.
Holy shit.
So that's where you start going, okay, yes, these things happen. War is horrible. War is hell. Innocent people get hurt. I want to say that, and Matt, you tell me if you agree with this. I think a lot of the losses that we suffered in the UK, I'm not sure for the US forces, but a lot of the UK losses was due to us trying to be very, very particular, and like we would put ourselves into extra harm's way to try to stay within the rules of engagement, and because of that, people got hurt.
Well, your rules of engagement were fucked during that GWAT as well, though.
At times it was. It depends it depends what general is in charge and what kind of mark they wanted to make. If
right. Yeah.
Flipping from being about hearts and minds to actually killing terrorists. But anyway, like I think a lot of the deaths that took place, at least in the UK side, is because we're purposely going out of our way to try to like keep it as clean as possible. And if we wanted to, it could have been a lot worse if we just went in like bulls in a china shop. But to an extent, there was a trade-off analysis made by people of much higher rank that we know it's going to be dirtier. We know that we may actually lose some lives, but we will have the moral high ground in the sense that we can now say we did the best we could to mitigate these losses. And the perception, whether valid or invalid, the perception is that that's not being done currently by Israel. And I think that's where this whole conversation about the Middle East gets really complicated, because they are the superior force in that region because we fund them, that we provide them arms in a way, like we give them money that they spend only on our stuff. So I get it, like it's not technically it's a business transaction, but we provide their arms, we subsidize their military, and if tomorrow we announce, no matter what happens, we are done with Israel, you guys have whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. The next day, I think most of the Middle East would just engulf Israel. So the big reason why that doesn't happen is because we're involved. We're the big dog on the block who says, yeah, like you do something stupid and look sideways and we'll just like blow you off the planet. So like there's all these extra things that go into it that it just really muddies the entire issue. I went on for a second there. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's all good. The thing I always come back to is like, at what point is it our responsibility to protect another country, no matter who it is? Like, we're not the world police, and we never were meant to be. They're literally in Washington's farewell address. He specifically calls out entangling like alliances as a negative and a thing to be avoided. And not just this current conflict, but I don't know, the past 7 or 8 that we've been involved in, at least. Like, what have we netted other than maybe defeating communism? What have we netted as a positive from that, other than, dead brothers and sisters and broken people when they come back?
I agree to an extent, but I think Matt made this point last episode. I think it's a very valid point. Is that post-World War II consensus, we did decide to become one of the world's police. And 2, because we came off the gold standard, which I know Dane and most libertarians, including myself, would agree with, we became a fiat currency-based economic system tied to the petrodollar.
You came off that happened standard like what, 35-ish years after World War II concluded?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What I'm saying is these things all adding up together. If we were not the world's police, the way that our economy is built, it would not be able to function, because we rely on the petrodollar to prop up our entire. The reason why we can have $38 trillion in debt, again,
no, 39.
39, sorry, 39. I missed. I don't have my ticker. The reason why we have $39 trillion in debt, whether you agree or disagree with it, which of course we don't disagree with it, but the reason why that can even happen is because it's all built on fiat currency and the petrodollar.
Right.
So like the honest truth, that the realpolitik view of it is that, yeah, like it's all messed up, but without it, what would America look like today? And most Americans, if you had to tell them that they would have to get rid of Walmart, welfare state, they'd have to get rid of.
So hold on, pause. If we had been sane from our economic and political engagement for the past 100 years, you never would have been in these situations to begin with. So people would never been giving up anything. These things would have naturally percolated into the ether because the market would have.
I think this is where that is a market fallacy in the sense that, yes, they would have percolated. It's not an issue of that they would have. It's a matter of when would they have and at what cost.
It would have taken a little bit longer, and it would have been at a much higher entry cost. It wouldn't have been immediately a ton of cheap shit all at once. Right.
Yep. But I think if you told the average American, hey, we had to prolong your, because we live in a materialist society and we have since the 40s.
Right. Yeah.
If you would have told the average American, hey, you can have this thing now, or you can have it in 25 more years.
That's the thing.
They're going to take it now.
All of this, man, is like people generally are never going to choose like actual short-term pain for long-term gain, right? They're going to want, I just want to feel good right now.
That's politics 101. That's how politics works. So I get it. And it's one of those things where, especially as libertarians, we can have all these critiques and they can all be valid critiques in terms of like the technicality of the critique. The honest truth of the fact of the world is that we don't live in a libertarian society. And that's the reason why these things don't happen. And we have to be conscious of the way that people actually function. And I know me, Dane, we have this conversation of sometimes as libertarians, we get into these bubbles and we assume everyone thinks the way that we do. But there's a bunch of people who, for right or wrong and different, and because of their backgrounds or whatever trials they've gone through growing up and what neighborhoods they grew up in and the things they didn't have access to, that they rely on all the free stuff they get from the government. And if you tell them that stuff goes away, but the overall system will be healthier, they'll still choose the free stuff.
And then in 10 years, you'll be a lot better off than you are now. They won't take that deal.
They won't. They want it now. And that's just the reality of the world. So that's one of those things that we have to just be aware of. I think we should move into this because we just talked about Tulsi and we talked a little bit about Donald Trump's comments on Kent. And I think this next reason is why he feels so confident about the way he does. And this is going to be CNN polling on MAGA support for the war in Iran. So this is Dave too. So this is a pretty good clip.
President, I will yell on your behalf every day, even if nobody's listening. The entire world needs to know Iran's always been the enemy. You're the only one brave enough to take them on.
Did you, man, dude, I love it, bro. It's amazing. Did you see, let's do this and we could wrap up in a.
This one's kind of long, so just let me know.
Yeah.
In a few minutes here, but let's just play the CNN, the poll, the MAGA poll. This was just, I mean, I thought this was AI. I could not believe they went with this.
Oh, dude.
This is just the way. Right. Oh, you haven't seen this, dude? Oh, Rob. And I'm almost jealous that you haven't seen it.
Too.
It's
like I
just keep in mind just the way CNN has covered Donald Trump. I mean, it's really amazing to watch. Like all the fucking never Trump, all the people just celebrating right now that Donald Trump's fighting this war. All the fucking Israel firsters, the Ben Shapiros, the Mark Levins, all the guys who were the never Trumpers, and now think CNN. The ultimate personification of just, we're going to fucking frame the guy for treason all day long. We will bash Donald Trump all day long. That was CNN for all these. Here's what they're doing to Donald Trump right now. Let's play this clip.
And this is one of those, because just take a look here. MAGA GOP view of Trump. Approve 100%. 100%. If you are a member of MAGA and the GOP, you approve of Donald John Trump. 0% say that they disapprove. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know you can't go higher than 100%.
Oh my God.
1972 Miami Dolphins. Now there are some.
All right, let's stop at that.
John Trump.
Yeah.
So I think I could hear a little bit what you were saying, Dane, under the video, but I think this is to the point, and I'll add this context to it, because this is actually data that just came out. But this first part came out yesterday, and this new one came out today. Same guy in that video also had another CNN poll.
Mm-hmm.
Leading up to the 2024 election, Trump had a plus 13% of men that voted in his way versus Kamala. That's part of the reason why, for the first time since I think was in 24 years, that a Republican won the popular vote. And honestly, it's probably a good percentage of why the overall vote was won. So plus 13 with the young men. It is now -7, which is a 20-point swing into the negative. That gets followed up by a Ipsos poll, a Reuters Ipsos poll. For those who are going to say, Reuters Ipsos, they're always like biased against the Republican. So is CNN. So let's keep the qualifier. Ipsos poll, current Trump approval rate, 36%, which is down 4 points since their last poll. The disapproval rate is up to 62%, up 4 points since his last poll. On immigration, he's down 13 points. On foreign policy, he's down 27 points, which is an all-time low. On the economy, he's down 33 points, which is a new low for him. On cost of living, he's down 41 points, which again is a new low. When you look at the U.S. strikes on Iran, it is a 35% approved, which is actually 2 points down since once the last poll was done, which is right when the conflict started. The disapprove is up 2 points to 61%. So sure, and this is like statistics 101. I actually had a post on this a while ago and so on and so forth. Whenever you do any kind of polling data, for example, if I polled 100 Samoan men and said, is spam the greatest thing ever? You might get 100% that spam is the most amazing, delicious meat ever created.
Sam's
As a proud Polynesian man, I would agree with that poll and I would take it to the bank. If you polled all people, you might get a much different number. And if I was to say, well, because the 100% of Samoans like spam now must be acknowledged as the greatest meat ever, and we should subsidize that spam because it has such good margins, everyone would be like, what on God's green earth are you saying?
I totally I misheard you. I thought you said Sam. I thought you were referencing
my wife as well. She's the best.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like polling data, and this is actually something I heard, I think Dave actually say, was the reason why CNN ran that poll is because there's a bunch of people in the DNC who are also for this war, even if they don't want to say it publicly because their base would tear them apart, but they are for the war. And by putting the 100% rate, they know that Trump sees that and goes, 100%, baby. Like, I can't do no wrong.
Right.
And also, you see all the Mark Levin types and all them putting it out. It's fantastic.
Yeah, 100% of the people that support you support the things you do. No shit. Like, it's so low information.
It's politics. So I think that's why you see a lot of the way Trump is behaving about this, is that you know for a fact, because we know this about 2016 campaign when he was in office, that there was a bunch of people who were just feeding him things that he wanted to hear, and that's how they led him by the nose in 2016 to 2020. That's how we got the COVID mess. That's how we got a bunch of stuff that happened that we all disapproved of, but we gave grace to him on going, okay, he didn't know any better. He didn't really pick his cabinet. He was just stuck with a bunch of people because he didn't think he was going to win. So these people were just false feeding him information, trying to play to his ego and move him around that way. If you think that is not happening currently, that there are not people in the administration who are feeding him 100% polls or feeding him Fox News clips showing that MAGA's behind you and hiding the disapproval ratings or saying, oh, well, those ratings are coming from leftist organizations, so we can ignore them. Or saying that, oh, and the new one is podcasters are a threat to democracy, even though he went onto every single podcast leading up to the election. If you don't think that that's being done on purpose, because whether we want to admit it or not, Trump is an 82-year-old boomer who just goes by this data. If you think this is not having an effect on the way that he is not just perceiving the way the world looks at him, how his base looks at him, how the U.S. looks at him, but also in his mind, listen, I'm doing the greatest thing ever. 100%, I'm the greatest president of all time. I'm the biggest unifier ever in the Republican Party. And if he thinks that,
it's just simply not true, though. I mean, objectively, I know I have a bias, but what do you guys think? Because I think that this choice to get into this war on behest of Israel, which was stated by the Marco Rubio, by Hegseth, by Bessent, by many people in the administration, that this is actually why we engaged, why we went and did this when we did, is because they were about to go kick off, and we knew if they kicked off, we'd get some, reactions we didn't want. So we just went ahead and went for it. But what do you guys think? Do you think? I personally think that the Republicans lose the House, they lose the Senate, and Trump becomes a lame duck for the next 2 years. and likely gets impeached.
I would say, and Matt, I'd like to get your opinion too. I think that the polling, if you're saying 2016 MAGA, do they 100% agree with Trump? I would say yes, they probably do. Because there were a lot of people who were very anti-war leading up to the election that flipped the minute that this became popular. Because that MAGA base, that 2016 base, and I want to clarify, 2016 base was the same base that like acknowledged when Trump said that if I grabbed a chick by the pussy, like it wouldn't change anything. They were like, that's true. That's the same group of people. So yes, they are 100%. The difference is that the 2024 Trump MAGA coalition wasn't just the 2016 voters. It was libertarians. It was Catholics. It was anti-war. It was the Maha crowd. It was a bunch of other people who had not voted for Trump in 16 or 20 that came along. It was the Joe Rogan fan types. It was all these other people who were not a part of MAGA in 16 that also came along. On top of that, you've had Trump say multiple times, well, I am MAGA. So whatever I say MAGA is, that's what I am. So a bunch of people who may have been 2016 MAGA hear that and go, well, I disagree with you, so that means I'm not MAGA anymore. So technically, he's probably right. MAGA is probably 100% in. The issue is, to your second point, that's maybe 38% of America, 40% of America at best. That's not enough to win you the House. It's not enough to win you the Senate. So you're right. I do think that they are playing a very, very dangerous game. Not because now Dane, me, and you are going to go vote Democrat. It's just that we won't vote.
Right.
Or we'll vote Libertarian. Or a bunch of people like young black men are just not going to vote. It was the first time in a generation that young black men voted Republican. Now they're just going to go, oh, we voted for you, and the things that we said we don't like, you're going to do anyway? All right, we just won't vote. Like, we're done. Same thing with young men, especially young religious conservative men. Like, they're just going to go, well, we're not going to vote Democrat because you don't like them, but we just won't. And that's whenever you have low Republican voter turnout, that is when Democrats win, because the one thing Democrats are very good at is creating turnout on non-primary election years or non-presidential elections.
Yeah.
This is why all these little runoffs that have happened the last, 6 months to a year have been primarily, shocker, the Democrat won in a deep red county. How did it happen? Because Republicans don't come out and vote unless it's for a president. And especially if they're disengaged, they're definitely not going to come out and vote. So like that's the consequence is you alienate that 10% that help you. What do you win? 51%, 52% the popular vote? So I think it was like he won by +4.
Yeah.
So of the 52%, 12 of it now says, all right, we're done. Like, we're not going to vote for them, but we're not going to vote for you either. So that's my take. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, you guys know, my opinion differs a little bit. I think the problem that we're going to get is, and we can, the royal we can scream from the top of our lungs, oh, Trump's just like every other politician. Well, we've made Trump just like every other politician. Trump came in and tried to do Doge, and all we did was shit all over that. And so we said, all right, I'll stop that. Trump says, why can't I think of the word? What are we doing to the undocumented immigrants? We'll call them to be polite. Deport. Man, that was a tough one. I'm going to deport everybody. All right, well, you got to go in and arrest them. Well, we're not going to let you do that. And now we don't like that you're doing that. Okay, then we'll stop doing that. Well, we want cheap gas. I promise you cheap gas. All right, well, Iran's just going to blow up Israel all the time. So let me stop that. Oh, we don't like you doing that. So what you do is every time somebody says, I'm going to be the different politician and I'm not going to do the same thing. And what we do is shit all over him as much as humanly possible. And then what we're going to do is we're going to elect the standard politician. It's going to be President Newsom, and it's going to be, a Democrat-controlled House and Senate, and we're going to reinstate all of the cost cutting. And admittedly, Doge didn't cut as many costs as it possibly could have, but all that's coming back. The chances of us repatriating everybody that we deported at the U.S. cost, the U.S. taxpayers' dollar, they're all going to come back. Yep. We will, you see these funny memes out there And you go, it wouldn't even surprise me, where you see, federal judge orders the U.S. to bring Khomeini back to life and reinstall him into power. And it's like, it's funny, but it's like, yeah, we're almost to that point where it's like, yeah, they're going to order Trump to somehow bring back somebody he killed and then reinstall him into power. And it's like, what we don't want in this country is politicians that break the mold. We don't. I mean, this is proof. Trump clearly doesn't break the mold. Love him or hate him, he does not fit the mold of a politician. Whether he's doing good or bad things, he doesn't fit the mold of a politician. And all we do is just shit on him constantly. I do not consider myself a MAGA Republican at all. But I can understand that for me, there is the ideals of a Republican are going to meet my personal beliefs more than that of a Democrat. Libertarians are probably going to come closer for me as well, but that's rarely a reasonable outcome. So what do I think what's going to happen? I think you're right. I think the Democrats are going to take the House. I don't know if it's statistically possible to take the Senate, but it might be. I haven't really dug into that as well. I think every poll has said they're going to take the House, and my guess is we will have weekly impeachments. Strictly so, when it's all said and done, we can say Trump is the only president that's been impeached 1,300 times. And we're not going to get anything done. I mean, if you look at a lot of the bills that are passed now, it's like renaming post office. That's about what Congress does for the most part. Not a lot happens, and we're going to get the same. And we can look at our ticker, but every time we go through another continuing resolution rather than have any sort of budget, our debt gets higher. We're not addressing our debt. We're just saying, well, at least we're not spending more. We're just spending more. So we don't address our debt. I think it was one of you two posted something that said, if we just had a balanced budget, within 20 years, inflation would take care of our debt. It was something along those lines. And it's like, yeah, there's zero chance whatsoever we will ever, in our current capacity, with our current set of politicians, ever get to a balanced budget. That's just never going to happen, because the reality is politicians care about getting themselves elected and getting donations. They don't care about you. They probably don't care about Iran and Israel. They care about campaign contributions for or against the war in Israel, for or against ICE, because it brings in the campaign contributions. And that's what we deal with. That's my opinion.
No, you're right.
I'll let you borrow off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think Matt's 100% right. I mean, I think that too, well, let me rephrase that. I think multiple things could be right, where I think Matt's seeing it from a different angle, but I think he's just as correct. I think he's right in the sense that this is the forest for the trees part of politics. And I know it's tough, because for someone, I'm going to get all ethnic on you guys for a second. As someone whose complexion is not as fair and blessed by God as you two, I know that the DNC is constantly messaging to people who are my complexion and darker, and telling us of all the wonderful things that they will do for our different communities, whether it be the Black community, whether that be the Hispanic community, wherever it is. And even though every time they make these declarations of all the wonderful things that they're going to do, and then they don't do any of it, their response to not doing any of it is, well, we didn't give you anything, but do you really want Republicans back? Because they're all racist. So like, yeah, we're going to do nothing for you, but you have to choose between us or the people who are racist and actively hate you. And that pitch has kept 96% of the African American community voting Democrat since the 80s. So like, that type of messaging has been very effective. I think that is the type of messaging that the Republican Party is currently engaging in. And it might not be incorrect either, that, hey, if you don't vote for us, You're going to get the trans stuff back. You're going to get open borders back. You're going to have Trump impeached. You're going to have a Newsom in 2028. Those things probably are factually true. But I think the big thing is that a lot of especially younger voters who, again, were a large reason why Trump was able to win, just don't care. And this is where you get, and I hate using his name because as a fellow Catholic, I can't despise what he says sometimes. This is where you get the Nick Fuentes types who become accelerationists. His actual political theory is, like, I know we're going to lose. I know it's going to get worse. Great. Let it get so bad that now we have a civil war and we can handle it with violence. I disagree with that worldview.
Is that really what he says?
Yeah, 100%. And you can, I will send you clips that I try to be.
Yeah,
I think there are a lot of things that are set up. There are a lot of things that Nick says or things that get attributed to Nick that I think are unfair or exaggerations. But the reason why he can make those unfair or exaggerative claims that the things he's saying is because there's a bunch of the stuff he does say that are just fucking dog shit. So it's like, maybe he didn't say that piece of dog shit, but he did say another one. So it's like, it's one of those things. And that's when he believes that if we accelerate it, if we let the left go rampant, that society will like snap back like a rubber band, where things are going to get so bad that either two things happen. We have a civil war, or people wake up from their senses and we snap back towards the middle. He would prefer that it moves farther right. I probably would as well to an extent. But he says at the very least, you get it to snap back to the middle. Whether you agree or disagree with that type of view of politics, that is not an uncommon view, especially in younger people. Because again, let's say I'm going to use the young white man as an example, although I am not a young white man, but I hope that you two will allow me to speak for this group of people for a moment. If you tell the young white man you got feminists on the left who hate you and despise you and think that the patriarchy is the reason why the whole world is evil, and you have a bunch of boomer Republicans, the Lindsey Graham types, saying that we should do Iwo Jima all over again and that Americans may have to die so that way we can beat Iran, like which one do you pick? And the reason I use Lindsey Graham is because Trump is giving him a platform. He's endorsed him. Yeah. He's had him through the Fox News circuit. He has more than once defended him from critiques from the anti-war part of MAGA. So if you're going to say, hey, this guy speaks for me, which he's doing, and you're saying that the left has the views that they have, if you are a man under the age of 30, which party do you pick? And I think that's the sad part of this is that those people are going to feel disenfranchised. They're not going to vote for anybody. And what's going to end up happening is someone who's going to come into office, a Newsom type, something like that, who's going to make their lives even more difficult, which makes it even less likely they vote in the future. Or eventually, every revolution in any country ever is led by young men. Period.
And we're also, I don't know what our debt to GDP is, but it's approaching like 100. I think it's like 130% right now. I know that like there's a statistic on like when your debt to GDP, and you can look back through all the data we have for the past couple hundred years of when it hits around the 150% mark ish, that's when violence starts and that's when shit really starts kicking off. And I don't see, like, unless we have someone who's speaking some sane economics that's coming up in 28, I don't see a way that we're going to skirt, because we're going to just continue printing money. We're just going to continue. People are going to continually pay more out of their weekly paycheck for their groceries, for their gas, for everything that they consume on a daily basis. And what are they going to do? They're going to look at the person at the very top, and they're going to want to overthrow or, do horrible shit to make it stop. And we're fast approaching this breaking point, which is historically proven.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's one of those things where the whole adage that history repeats itself is incorrect, but it does have rhythms.
It does rhyme.
It rhymes. There's times where similar things happen, not exactly the same way it did before, And to your point, yeah, historically, once you get that type of GDP to debt, put it this way, it's not a good sign that the answer to the housing crisis that was being proposed by this administration was a 50-year mortgage. Like you just can't do that. You can't. Like I know Scott Bessent wasn't the fondest. Like he was like mixed. Like when he was going on like CNBC and stuff, like he would try to kind of sell it, but also be like, well, this is just a stopgap and we're working on some other bigger, cooler things, but this is just like something we can give you in the meantime. But I think the reason why he was doing that is because, to your point, he's aware, like, again, you can't tell young people, man or woman, that the only way for you to get ahead is to take a 50-year mortgage, which basically makes you an indentured servant for the rest of your life, while you're also carrying college debt. Because whether we like it or not, the reason why most people go to university, because I know, remember me growing up, Dane, and I know, Matt, you probably were the same. I remember being told all throughout secondary school that if I went to university, I was basically guaranteed like the dream life. That I go to university for 4 years, I graduate, I'm making like 80 grand a year. I'm gonna find like a smoking hot blonde. I'm gonna have like a mansion that I found on like foreclosure for half of what it's worth. Like there was this picture that was given to me of how like all doors were open for you and the world will be your oyster.
Well, so, I mean, we're in the fourth turning right now, right? I mean, for those who don't know what it is, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. We're in the weak men stage right now. And I don't mean to be an alarmist or be hyperbolic here, but I just can't, I can't see without very swift and decisive leadership. I don't see how we get around an impending catastrophe. Also, add on to the AI shit to this too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't mean a dog leg, but
this isn't a video or anything that we have pulled up, but this came to the top of my mind, and I'd like to get Matt, yours, and Dane opinion on this. I do think all the unintended consequences we just talked about in terms of losing midterms and senates and all the lefties coming back in and making the world a horrible place again. I think that another unintended consequence is that anyone who was connected to Trump in this term will likely be politically untenable. Mm-hmm. Like JD's already screwed himself over. And I know that Marco's getting a bunch of love right now, but he's getting a bunch of love from the neocon types, which is not the most of MAGA. So,
and your normal Joe Schmo voter is now been able to identify that as like a subsect of group of politicians. Correct. Too. Because, I mean, there's a positive there.
Yep. So I think that those types are not going to be able to run. I think the one positive, though, that this is doing is it is opening a lane for a different type of America First, a true America First politician to try to run. The one that comes to the top of my head is because we were looking at places in Florida recently, is James Fitzpatrick in Florida, where this past week he actively denounced what happened in Iran. He actively said that he wants to divest from all foreign, so like, for people who don't know, your individual states, some states in the U.S. do invest their own private funds for like their labor unions and so on and so forth into foreign assets, which I think is insane, but some states do this. Florida does this, and they have a bond that was done, I think it was last year, due to the rise of anti-Semitism. They made a $358 million investment into Israeli bonds. Forget about what you feel about Israel as a nation state, but I think this is economics 101. A nation that is constantly in some type of conflict is not a safe bet for positive economic growth. Right. Like it's at the best, it's stable because you have to constantly fight a war. But if you can't expand because you're constantly fighting and spending money on defense, it's not the best investment. So he said he wants to bring that money back and use it for a bunch of different stuff in the state. He's still extremely conservative. I think he's to the right of Trump because he wants to do a sin tax on OnlyFans creators.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So he is your more traditional, conservative, religious right-winger who at the same time is adopting a lot of the America First, anti-intervention, he actually talks a lot to the populace too about the cost of housing. He wants to ban BlackRock from doing business in Florida, doesn't want AI data centers. And since January to now, so in 2.5 months, he went from 2% in polls to like almost 36% in polls. So I think there is a positive in that this is opening a hole for people to step through who want to adopt that type of America first, whatever that means, that type of politics. But I think it's one of those things where you're going to have to be prepared and be willing to like have the GOP turn against you, because he's getting zero help and zero funding from the GOP. He's doing all with snow donations. So like, do you guys believe that that is a potential outlet for this, is that we get candidates who start running who do focus on domestic issues? Like, forget the whole Israel conversation, just purely domestic America issues. Do you think that actually starts to happen?
I hope so. I think so. And like, just based on the few, I don't know, like half dozen, 8 or so conversations we've had with gubernatorial candidates, just as a party, I will certainly say, I mean, granted, these have been private conversations between us and the candidate, and it's not like we're seeing a big change in public campaigning style necessarily. But as far as like what all the candidates we've spoken to, you know, are really concerned about, it is like bringing things in, you know, and I think that that's kind of been a motif over the past probably decade or so, generally amongst the public too, is that like we need to get back to just like touching grass. We need to get back to being neighbors. We need to get, you know what I mean? Like we're all so bombarded by technology and screens and this thing and that notification, and you know, that like I think people are searching for meaning and searching for what they can do. I mean, we've seen this just for the amount of volunteership that we've seen just from a party standpoint. You know, I've been involved for 5 years, and only until the past, I don't know, 8 months have we like consistently had people that are like, hey, I want to do something. I want to help further this cause. I want to stand up for liberty. I think there's a much wider appetite for that. But again, I could be speaking from my silo and be completely gaslighting myself. I don't know.
Just really quick before Matt, you chime in, I just want to throw this out there too, because it's something that I've been monitoring all day. In Florida, they're having a election, Florida seat SD14. So in 2024, that district, SD14, was a plus 12 for Republicans. Right now, the Democrat candidate is up 50.4 to the Republican candidate at 49.5.
Wow.
So that's a 12-point swing in a year and a half.
Did you look at their like if their demos changed at all? Like, did they have a...
So this is a predominantly like middle upper class, semi-rural, not near a city kind of place where it's been like, so that plus 10 for Republicans in 2024, it was plus 8 in 22, it was plus 11 in 20. So it's been a predominantly red county, plus 10 points, 12 points almost every year consistently for a long time, almost like the last almost decade and a half. If this result continues and the Democrat wins there, it would be the first time it has a Democrat representative in 16 years.
But what I meant to ask though is like, did that area have a giant demo change?
No, so this isn't like, so a lot of places where you're seeing demo changes in Florida are like near like primarily southern Florida, because you have a lot of the AI and tech stuff.
Like all kinds of different districts in Texas, right? Because of all the Californians that have moved there.
You are, but you're seeing it primarily around like Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and Austin, because that's the areas that people are going to. Like a lefty from California isn't moving to Plano.
Right.
Like he's just not. So it's the same thing with Florida. A lefty from New York who's leaving because of Mandami is not moving to Ocala. Like they're moving towards Orlando, Tampa. They ain't going to like Jacksonville, Gainesville, because those are very red areas. But they're moving further south in the state. So like this result, I think, is very interesting. Like it could all change in the next hour. It's at 95% reported, which means it will be counted by the end of tonight. But if this was to hold, again, I think this is one of those things. This has happened already twice in Georgia. It's happened twice in Texas, where we had seats that were plus 10 or more for Republicans have flipped. So, like, I think this is something that we will see potentially more of, to the point that me, you, and Matt were making about what the consequences of this are. But I just want to throw it out there because this is something that's happening in real time. But Matt, what were your thoughts on the idea of a potential new wave of candidates coming that are more focused on America first, on intervention, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be any dramatic changes. I think you're still going to have, interest in overseas stuff. I think we're still going to be, no matter who gets elected, there's still going to be interest in overseas, whether necessary or not. There's still going to be interest in overseas. Anything domestic, I mean, I don't think it's going to be positive. I don't think it's going to be necessarily for our good. I mean, let's look at right now, what is the biggest bill that Republicans are trying to push through? And again, this is a bill, I'll be completely honest, a bill I 100% support, but what's the number one bill that Republicans are trying to push through right now?
The SAVE Act.
The SAVE Act. How do we, Republicans, make sure we stay in power? What have Democrats said they're going to do if they take power? We are going to investigate everyone that has ever cooperated in any way, shape, or form. I'm reading it right here. They have promised they will drag everybody. If you gave any money to help build a ballroom, you're coming and you're going to explain yourself to the House. So you will never, ever, ever, ever again cooperate with any Republican ever again, because we will be the ones in charge. And so, no, I don't think this is going to, the idea that this is going to get better for us, it's not going to get better. The number of free handouts, because that's what gets Democrats elected, let's be honest, is going to increase. And the amount of, cracking down, whether violently or not, on, the promises that Republicans make, it's going to happen. So no, I don't take such a rosy outlook. I don't think it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse. And if we see continuation of things like are happening in Virginia, I think it's going to be, we will tell you what you're going to do because we've taken every ability you have to fight back. And I think that's an ultimate goal, is you'll do what we tell you to do. The ultimate goal of every government, however free they want to be, the ultimate goal is complete and total power to tell you what to do, because government knows best.
Matt with the black pill.
That was shit.
Real quick, too, just because we just talked about that other House seat in Florida, a different seat that was also running, Florida HD 87. It was a plus 11 Republican in 24, 20, and 16. It has been called that the Democrat will win there, and they're going to be winning by plus 9. So that's a 20-point swing.
I think this is real important. And, I always look at, my home state of New Hampshire as a point, but I think Florida is real close. Net migration into Florida has been huge. Everybody is leaving California to go to Florida because of what Ron DeSantis has done in Florida. And it's like, what we need to do? Change it. Everything's going great. Let's change it all. And I worry about the same thing. You look at most of the statistics for New Hampshire, it ranks number one, like always real high in almost every list. And it's like, these races are still close. And it's been they have, their federal senators and House reps are Democrats, but internally it's been Republican. Both chambers and the governor have all been Republicans for quite a while now, really since its rise to where it is now. And it's like the fact that these are still close, it's like, man, these guys are doing something good. So what we really need to do is change it and fuck it all up as quickly as possible. And this, the same thing's going to happen. Ron DeSantis is, he's evidently doing something right because people are moving there, and it's like, well, we gotta fix this and we gotta change it up real quick.
Yep. Who was it? I think it was when Rogan first moved to Austin. He actually said this as a new person moving into the state, was like, don't don't leave California to Texas and bring California politics to Texas. Leave it in California.
Don't make here there.
Yeah, and Matt, you're right. Every time this happens, you see, like, this is what's happening with the Mondami thing in Florida.
So what's happening here in Maine?
It's actually really big in Massachusetts too. Like, I'm not sure how much you guys follow, but I just, it's fascinating that, like, the economic situation is hilarious. But basically, they've lost about like $18 billion in taxable revenue over the last 4 years. And they're saying that that's being divided up almost like 50-50 between Texas and Florida. So you're having a bunch of people, I'm sorry to have to say this, and a lot of people are not going to like this, including some people who I know in the GOP in Maine, but it is what it is. The GOP in northern states, especially the Northeast, is not as conservative as the GOP in Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma.
Well, right, because
they may be under the same banner, but they're not the same kind. They're not conservatives, most of them.
They're playing to the middle.
Yeah, so like when you get conservatives who leave the North and go further south, they're bringing more left-leaning things with them, whether they want to admit it or not. Like, no matter how you feel about things, let's say like abortion, for example, the GOP in Maine removed that as a plank from their overall messaging for this past cycle since post-Trump. Whether you approve, disapprove, whatever it is, that has always been a staple of the GOP since since abortion actually became a legal thing in a sense, or became prominent. Always been anti-abortion. That's gone. I know that, Dane, you have you have somewhat different opinions on like some of the LGBT stuff. That's always been a plank on the Maine.
Do we?
To an extent. Well, we don't need to go on that. That's a different episode. We'll have Matt prep something for that later. But no matter how you feel about that, that's always been the conservatives are for traditional families. That got removed from the plank from the national GOP and also from the state GOP in Maine. So like even the people who are leaving because they're more right-leaning than the rest in northern states, they're to the left of the conservative people in the states that they're moving to. So they are bringing more centrist politics to more conservative states. And to your point, Matt, that changes the overall politics and demographic over time, whether Republicans want to admit it or not. Not all Republicans are the same. Not all Democrats are socialists, although more than I would like, but not every single one is. That's just the way it is. And when you get people who are, America's just so big that like a conservative in Maine is not the same as a conservative in Oklahoma. They're just not the same, like politically the same people. They just aren't. And that's the complicated thing about, well, not even complicated, that's the intentional thing that happens in American politics is both parties, the left and the right, make it team blue versus team red, even though team red's not all the same and team blue's not all the same. But all that matters is that the opposite side doesn't win. And that's all people care about. And that's how you get the types of results and how you get Florida that became a red state. It's probably going to become more purple over the next 5 years. Same thing with Texas. That's just the trade-offs that come with politics, I suppose.
There are no solutions.
Only trade-offs. So let's leave this on a slightly more charismatic, nice note in the sense of all things. There's a lovely video on Thomas Massie, who is a favorite amongst libertarians, on his voting record with Republicans. So I think this is a very interesting clip if you want to play that, Matt.
I vote with Republicans 91% of the time. And the 9% I don't, they're taking up for starting another war or bankrupting our country.
Wait, what was that bleep? I couldn't read his lips.
It was sexual assaultists.
Oh.
Because you can't say the R word or you get demonetized.
I think it was the P word for
P word, yeah. Sorry.
Children.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think this is very interesting. The reason why I think this is like a high note is at the same time that this is happening, that Massey's getting a lot of heat from Trump in particular. Trump was just at a rally 2 weeks ago for the person running against him, so on and so forth. If you look at polling data for Massey, he's still up by like 14 points.
Actually, after the rally, he had
up.
like a 20. Yeah, it was a double-digit increase in his support.
So I think that is the one positive, is that I think to your point, Matt, you're 100% right. I think politics in in the whole is probably going to become more black pilly over the next few years. I think, though, that there are little pockets here and there where someone like a Massey can exist. I know Rand Paul is not in any danger of losing his seat. I brought up James Fishback and how he's raising in the polls. I think there's a very good chance he actually wins. So I think there will be these little pockets here and there. I know in New Hampshire, we still have the Free State Project there. So there will always be a pocket of libertarianism that is alive and well.
I mean, and to be completely honest, they're taking over definitely the GOP, but also they have many inroads on the DNC in New Hampshire as well.
Yep. So I do think there will be pockets. I think what this does, though, and I know that Dane's going to love this word, is I think this eventually will lead to balkanization inside the United States.
I do love that. Yes.
I don't think it happens in our lifetime, to be honest. But I do think that my hopefully future adopted children, that I think they will be living in that world, that that conversation becomes far more at the top of the political consciousness.
Which is what the founders intended to begin with. We were meant to be like 13 separate countries that had a very small centralized federalized government.
I agree. Yeah. I actually brought this up on one of my posts too, is that I think that a lot of terminology that has not been a part of the political lexicon is becoming more popular. Like in Catholic circles, there's this idea of concordia. And that's something that's being talked about on a few podcasts that I've listened to that are not like Catholic podcasts. These are more like your normal right-wing, more conservative, but still slightly religious people. So the idea that some of these terms, I've heard balkanization brought up by Michael Knowles quite a few times in the last like 6 months. So the fact that these types of terms they put a very small sliver of gray in that black pill, is that there's going to be, I think there will be these small little pockets where a lot of the ideologies and things that maybe me, you, and Matt can't agree on will still be fruitful. But to Matt's point, I think there are going to be like little pockets of little Gardens of Eden in an overall really doomy kind of political atmosphere in America.
I mean, whether or not you want to acknowledge it, and maybe this is me still living in my silo, but our thought process as far as libertarianism as a whole, you know, the Ron Pauls, the Thomas Sowell, sort of, he's not necessarily branded as libertarian, but like Dave Smith, Scott Horton, a lot of the people that are starting to percolate up into the general like media lexicon are putting these ideas in these like the Knowles, right? Because I can tell you, you know where the Knowles got that idea from? I can tell you it was from a podcast 2.5 years ago when he and Dave Smith were sitting in the same room together and he was having these same conversations. Yeah, do we like one of the main criticisms that we get all the time is that, oh, you're going to get 1% of the vote. I mean, Trump said this at convention in DC in 24, and he's right. But we also, because enough of us diverted from our party line and voted for him, is why he got in power, to be completely honest. So let's not forget, let's not be completely black-pilled, Matt. Let's also acknowledge that our ideas are finally coming into the general lexicon and have the ears of people like Thomas Massey, who is a rhino in the best way possible, right? He's not really a Republican. He just runs as one. Same with Rand. You know, you could make that argument for Chip Roy to a degree. Several people.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But like, the important thing is that we keep trying to march forward, because what the founders intended is so far away from what we are now, and no one knows how to run your life better than you do, right?
I would agree with that for the most part. Yeah. I'm curious. One last, I guess this is what we could probably end the podcast onto, is if there is a white pill that we could feed, and not just purely because we're in our own silos, Dane, but because there's actual.
I acknowledge it, man.
If there is like one white pill or one like I guess word to the wise that each one of us can give libertarians, because this is a libertarian podcast at the end of the day.
Oh yeah.
So like if there's one thing that we could tell our listeners to focus on, things that they should be encouraged about, even here in the state of Maine, things that we're currently working on to try to like bring some positivity back to this, like what would that be? I'll go last, but if one of you two want to go.
Sure. No, I'll go first. I think at the end of the day, like I just said, no one can run your life better than you, right? And that you should be the arbiter of your own life. You should have the final say on what you have to do and what you do. Do. Anyway, so things like, right to food, there's like a lawsuit going on in, is it Camden? Where's Brian? Callis.
Yeah, Callis. Yeah.
It's like get involved in your town council meetings, because I will tell you, like, it doesn't take much public involvement to move the needle. And if enough people that are paying attention, that don't want more governmental overreach, just simply stand up and speak, things change. I mean, Kate and I were just at our yearly town meeting in Hiram, and there was probably 150 people there, which is the largest. So we're a town of like 1,600, and that was the largest attendance that we've seen in the past 4 years since we've been here. And the reason why was because there was a land ordinance that was being proposed that so many people wrote in and showed up to object to, because this ordinance was very subjective. The code enforcement officer could basically determine that your property was derelict of cleanliness, and they could levy a bunch of fines on you and all this, that, and the other. And what had happened is so many people had written in and stood up at the meeting and spoke up. The selectman, the chairperson of the select board, actually was like, before we start passing the mic around, we're actually going to table this and rewrite it because we've heard you, right? And this is 100 and some odd people out of 1,600, but like that scales up to Congress as well. I've heard many Congress people say on many different accounts that they get 100 emails or 100 emails/calls, and that affects how they vote on something, because so few people actually get involved in their governance. So, I mean, what was the original question? What's the white pill? Mm-hmm. The white pill is, if you're paying attention, say something and tell someone, and not just your neighbor and your wife or your husband. Contact your representatives. Make those inroads.
I like it. Come on, Matt. You gave us a black pill, and I got to feed us a white one.
Yeah. So, what does the white pill do?
The white
Optimism makes you feel better. That gives you hope.
All right.
Jeez.
No, I mean, all right. I'm gonna do two. I didn't talk too much tonight, so I'm gonna take two. I moved up here. My wife and I moved up here because we wanted to be self-sufficient. We wanted to do everything that we could on our own. We have a giant garden. We raise goats for dairy. We raise chickens for meat and eggs. We tap our own maple trees. There's a laundry list of things we do ourselves. Learn self-sufficiency. If you think the boogaloo is going to happen, that's going to be great for you. But also, you learn to appreciate it more. You learn to say, "Hey, this isn't easy, and I appreciate the little things, even if it's just the ability to go to the store and get a gallon of milk versus go milk a goat in 15-degree weather." But also do your research when it comes to politics. There's so many things that we just look on Facebook or Twitter or anything else and take a 20-second clip and go, "Oh, well, this is what it is. This is what they said. The politicians said all this." I always think back to the conversation I had with a friend about the the Georgia voting law a few years back, where it was, they're going to take away your right to vote, and they're going to pull you out of line, and you can't have water or food in line. And I asked him, I said, well, did you actually read the law? And he said, no, but I've seen this all over the place. I said, read the law and tell me what it says. It says that a politician or representative of a person running cannot come and hand you a gift to include water in line. They can't bribe you for a vote. And so many of us just look at something on TikTok or social media and go, or just read the headline of a news story and go, oh, well, that's the case. And we don't look at what is the context, who is the author, what is more to it than just, well, I read the headline. And the more you can educate yourself, people can hate you, but if you're based in fact, you're not wrong. And I've always tried to do that throughout my career, and I've always tried to base myself in fact and law. And if you can read the law and read the fact and understand it, they may hate you, but you won't be wrong. So that's the why. I don't know if that was white, and it might have been off-white, but it was as white as it gets, I think.
I like it. So I'll leave mine with this. And I think this is going to take us into a interesting non-political place. I think that as a spiritual revival continues to happen in America, that traditionally when people became more religious, they felt like their home was the Republican Party. I think that is changing, where I think especially the religious, especially young religious men, are realizing that politicians are not your friends. They're not your allies. They usually don't care too much about you. As someone who's a Christian and a Catholic myself, I would say, of course, the only king I have is Christ himself. But if you leave all that aside, I think the political consequences of this are very favorable for libertarians if, and this is a very key if, because me and you, Dane, have had this conversation, is that libertarians lean on their English Enlightenment foundational principles. I think you could attract a lot of those young men. I think that there are times where we as libertarians become afraid of words like morality, because morality implies that there has to be restrictions on actions, and which in many cases you'll get claims from libertarians that you are an authoritarian if you restrict them in any way. So I think that is something that is going to be a challenge. But I do think that as this revival continues happening, I think those people are going to look for a political home. I think the Libertarian Party can be a political home for them. But I think that the Libertarian Party has to be willing and brave and strong enough to acknowledge that the intersection of culture and politics, especially for young people right now, is religious based, and they have a moral prescription for the world. And we have to be willing to at least converse with those people. And I know that a lot of them will probably see very favorably like the Mises caucus in the Libertarian Party. Many people who are Mises libertarians are not open borders. They are not necessarily pro-abortion. There's a lot of the Tom Woods types of libertarian. As a fellow Catholic, I think will attract a lot of those types of people. Even Dave Smith and his more religious awakening the last few years, and people like Joe Rogan, who's always been a lot more sympathetic to libertarians than most, also going through a bit of a religious awakening. I think these are all positive signs in that there is a potential for not just growth within the libertarian movement, but a foundation that can be set that will stand the test of time. Like, I like to use this example, of course, because of my background, but the Catholic Church has gone through ups and downs. It has grown, it has shrank, but it's been around for 2,000 years. And the apostles clearly state that as long as there's only one left, then that's all that is needed for the church to survive. As long as there's one true believer left, the church is alive. I think the same thing can be said of libertarianism. If we start to accept some of these people into the movement and we're willing to have honest conversations about their concerns, a lot of those people are going to have more populist views on things than the average libertarian does, including on things like the size and scope of government. A lot of them are going to be far more minarchist than Dane would like, and may even be more sympathetic to many of the arguments that the left makes when it comes to things like healthcare and housing and education. I know that we've had some private conversations in our Discord channels about one of the key challenges that libertarians are going to have is being able to have honest and open debates with people that doesn't come down to, well, it's not your money, so it's theft. Like, that's a great tagline. It might be factually accurate, but in terms of realpolitik, in terms of elections, in terms of what a political movement is, it is not a winning message. Doesn't mean that we have to necessarily give in all the way to the more lefty view of the world, but it means that if we're going to have an honest conversation, we have to be able to give a prescription that goes beyond just the catchphrases like taxation is that, whether it be true or not. And I think that is the positive, is that I think that the Libertarian Party is capable of it. It's all about the will to do so. And I think if that will materializes, that you'll see the party grow. I think that a lot of the CIA influence in the party will eventually work its way out, because there's nothing more dangerous to a psyop than a young religious man, because his view of the world is very focused on something outside of himself. So that's my white pill, is that as myself, someone who's gone through a religious reawakening the last few years and has come back to my faith, I think that's a very positive thing, especially in politics. I'm very happy that young people are acknowledging that the right or the GOP isn't necessarily the answer. I just hope that we could become a home for them. So that's my hope and my pill. Yep. So
love that. I want to tag this with just one more thing, and it's a quote from Thomas Paine out of Common Sense. Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one.
Fantastic quote. Dave Smith just used it against Adam Sosnick today on the Piers Morgan show. It made me very happy.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's a little bit of positivity to end this on. So it's not all doom and gloom. So Dane, Matt, thank you so much for joining me this evening to go ahead and discuss this. And it is a complicated topic with Iran. I mean, I think when we talk about things like warfare, as libertarians, we make it very simplistic, maybe too simplistic sometimes. But I do think that overall, our view of the world probably is more in alignment with what the founders wanted. It's probably more in alignment with what the average voter actually feels. So it's a good conversation to have. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. Again, for anyone who's listening to this, if you're interested in more conversations like this, please check us out on social media. We are on Facebook, we are on X, we're on Instagram. Also, lpme.org. That is the actual website for the Libertarian Party of Maine. You'll be able to find some more information, not just on the party itself, but some other stuff we have going on with the website. We just did a revamp a few months ago and working on things like new blogs, so on and so forth. And reach out to your local rep. If you are interested in being involved with the party, if you like the messaging, the things you're hearing here, and want to be involved, please reach out. I know Dane will be more than happy to have a conversation with you or put you in contact with your local rep, and hopefully we can go ahead and make some more white pills or maybe even get Matt on board eventually. So that's the positive there. Anything else, Matt and Dane, in closing?
I'm good, man.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah.